Welcome to Anti Moonboy News, episode 21. I'm your host, Zenu. And yeah, we got a good one for you today. Lots of different news topics to get to. Now, at the beginning of each episode, we take a look at the Superchats at xmrchat.com/Zenu. I did not receive any this week, so we're going to just skip right through this. But as always, if you do want to donate, again, that's xmrchat.com/Zenu, and I'll read off your comment or question. And yeah, but let's keep on going here to the news, actually. We're going to just jump right into the news. I don't really have any channel updates other than the fact that I'm continuing to work on my manifesto Darknet Market Maximalism, and that should be out at the end of the month. T-shirts are being produced right now for my merch, and those should also be out within the next couple of weeks. I'm waiting to hear back from them, actually. I just emailed them today for an update. And that's really about it. I'm kind of just trucking along here. And I think, yeah, once I finish the manifesto, I'm going to finish up Attack of the Poison Outputs. And then I'm going to kind of take a break, I guess, and mostly just focus on doing the podcast every week and, things like that. And probably in the later part of the summer, maybe even in the fall, we'll start a new series, probably a kind of beginner series regarding Monero. That is at least a plan. It will be something called like Monero Boot Camp or something. But that's a ways away. And of course, things change pretty quickly. So as always, if you have any suggestions as well, or whatever, you can email me at zenu@antimoonboy.com. And I'll be able to read whatever you write. Okay, let's go right to the news. And we're going to start off with April Fools. Yeah, April Fools had passed recently. If you are someone who goes on the internet, April Fools is a pretty annoying day. It's a lot of unfunny jokes, but it's kind of how it is. Sometimes, though, there are some good ones. For the people who like 4chan out there, usually 4chan does something kind of fun for April Fool's Day. I remember one time they like combined boards together, so you had like different board cultures, like memeing together. It was pretty funny. This year they just started taking boards offline for the kind of as like a parody of the Doge stuff with Trump. It was kind of half-assed, but anyways, you get a lot of memeing going on. And of course, there's a lot of cryptocurrency memeing going on. And we had Proton Mail release a meme with regarding cryptocurrency. And we got to talk about it because it really just highlights, the backwards thinking of people who are stuck in that tribalistic mindset. It's unfortunate, too, because, Proton Mail or the Proton brand has really diversified. I know they have like a VPN. Now they have a crypto wallet. I think they even have a browser now. Do they? I might be wrong about that. Whatever. They have a lot of different, privacy-minded, secure-minded things. But, once you begin to expand, your standards kind of get lowered, right? We've seen this with many different things, right? And many different, fields. For example, if you really like a video game, right? Then you're going to have spin-offs of the video game. You're going to have different things, and just the quality gets oversaturated, right? And we see this with again, tons of different types of things or businesses, or, once you have more people paying attention to it and more people coming in, the quality goes down. And we've kind of seen that with Proton, where the quality has kind of taken a dip in recent years. And part of that dip is with cryptocurrency. Now, for the context here, about a year or two ago, Proton Mail had, or it was a year ago, Proton Mail, they created a cryptocurrency wallet. And they were promising, the best privacy experience that you could get. And their wallet only allowed Bitcoin. Now, of course, everyone who knows even a little bit about cryptocurrency was like, hey, kind of what's going on here. Why aren't you guys like having Monero involved? Why can't you use Monero here? And the thing is with Proton Mail, they don't even accept Monero as payment, and still to this day. They accept Bitcoin, but they don't accept Monero. So a lot of people have been asking for it. Its requests have been, well documented, and yet Proton Mail just continues to ignore people who, want to buy their services with privacy. It's why I've moved away from Proton Mail, actually, because I got kind of tired of it, and I use Tuda now. So yeah, I mean, they made their choice. Fine. I moved my business elsewhere. And I know a lot of people also did, because we were kind of annoyed with, Proton Mail continuing to kind of just ignore Monero. But anyways, when all this drama had initially happened about a year ago, they made this Proton wallet. They were adamant about being Bitcoin only. And so there was a lot of pushback. And so one of the guys went on Seth for Privacy's podcast. I don't have it in front of me. It's not worth playing, because basically he was asked about Monero. Why aren't you including Monero in your wallet? And he flat out said that they were concerned about regulations, and that they were advised from like an accounting perspective that it would be better just to only allow Bitcoin. I mean, he just said that flat out. And I think, words like that really scare me, right? That's bending the knee to regulations. And you know what? That's fine if you want to be compliant. I'm not going to I'm not going to say that you have to, stick your middle finger to the government. I'm not saying that at all, but why even go into cryptocurrency if you're going to do it incorrectly, right? And they had a very maximalist mindset. And for what it's worth, I don't see the recommendations that they got where Monero is illegal. That doesn't make any sense to me either. It's a peer-to-peer cryptocurrency. So anyways, I don't understand what logic they're going on. And to be honest, it seems like maximalist garbage. And I think they're very pro Bitcoin, and they don't want to endorse anything else. So anyways, they released this wallet, and no one's really using their wallet. And the main reason why is because, one, it's a Bitcoin only wallet, but two, it's not even a privacy wallet. This was kind of affected. It was extremely affected by what happened with Samurai Wallet. I guess they were working with Samurai Wallet, or maybe they were going to use the Whirlpool implementation that Samurai had. I honestly completely forget, but I know they were doing some privacy things, and they nixed those ideas once Samurai Wallet was arrested. And so now they basically just have a regular Bitcoin wallet that people can have on their own, which, there's dozens of those, but whatever. I don't think many people use their wallet. And again, they've made their choice, whatever, And I moved on, and many other people moved on as well. And that's kind of been it. Their email service is still probably the most used of, the quote unquote privacy emails. And by the way, email, I do not recommend people trusting an email service. If you have sensitive information, use PGP. That being said, you can have better services, just like how you can have better VPN services. But at the end of the day, when you're putting trust into something else, there's trust, right? So the point is overall moot, right? They made their decision, whatever, we've moved on. However, they decided to start joking again. And on April Fool's, they made a post, and they basically made a post taking a dump on everything that's not Bitcoin, and they even mentioned Monero. So I'll read it out here. It says, Proton Wallet users will soon be able to hold and manage all major cryptocurrencies in addition to Bitcoin. Introducing industry favorites such as Doge, SHIB, Trump, and Sol, alongside Ripple, Monero, Bitcoin Cash, and Ethereum, which have stood the test of time. Which crypto is your favorite? So I understand what they're doing here, where they're saying, hey, we're going to be allowing all these meme coins now in our privacy wallet. And, by the way, we're also going to allow these popular cryptocurrencies who each have, a very passionate internet community. And we're also going to allow those as well. And it's very clear to me that they're engagement farming. Whatever, That's kind of the buzzword of the past couple weeks on this program. I am self-aware of this. But like, it really is a bad look for Proton, where they're taking a dig at Monero. Like, if you want to be considered, this open source, audited, end-to-end encrypted, self-custodial, privacy mindset kind of company, right? If that's really what you want, taking a dig at Monero, punching down at Monero and equating it to Trump and Trump coin and Dogecoin or whatever, it's just a bad look. It makes them, frankly, look like Moonboys. And so when you're looking for a company to trust, again, I recommend never trusting a company if you can get away with it. But like Proton, they are a big name in the space. And it's just really disappointing, to see them kind of like not get it. And, in the past, they totally cucked out. They didn't add Monero. And here they are, doubling down and like making fun of Monero. And it's kind of just like, listen, right now, the largest privacy economy dependent on cryptocurrency, they're using Monero instead of Bitcoin. So like, like you can be ahead of the curve, or you can kind of just, simp for what is approved by traditional finance. By all means, you've made your choice. I get it, but it's a bad look. And all the real ones out there, they're paying attention to this. So anyways, they decided to make fun of Monero, and yeah, it's just a bad look. I doubt they even really realize this too. Like, my interpretation is that when it comes to cryptocurrency, a lot of people who really care about privacy, they kind of just turn off cryptocurrency, just because cryptocurrency has such a bad reputation. But, because Bitcoin has been around the longest, it has the largest network effect, they do, in a lot of cases, just support Bitcoin before other cryptocurrencies. But we are seeing the slow, organic growth of Monero in usage, not just on darknet markets, but in clearnet markets as well. And that usage is because people really care about that project. So it's a shame, and I really hope that they reverse course on this and stop being complete cucks to, regulations that don't even exist, by the way. Like, I don't even know what they're citing. And, I love Seth, but like, he didn't push back on this guy. I would have completely pushed back on that guy during this podcast interview, because like, I don't know what he's even talking about. But time and time again, we've seen exchanges delist Monero, and I don't even particularly care about exchanges if you know my work, but like, we've seen these delistings happening for what reason? Their interpretations of the law. What are their interpretations? Right? They don't know. So anyways, it's this is the kind of battlefield that we are fighting with regulations. And then you have this kind of unfortunate circumstance where you have this influential voice in the market punching down on Monero. And the good news, though, is they look like idiots for doing this. So at the end of the day, the good guys will win. So I guess it's not that big of a deal. So this week, the big news was the tariffs that Trump has implemented. And the market took a giant dump. Everything went down. It seems like today things are like kind of recovering relatively. I don't know. In Trump's typical fashion, he makes his announcement and he had that like list of like all the countries he was putting tariffs on. It's kind of funny. And obviously prices are going to go up. If you have tariffs, it just makes things more expensive. It goes down to the consumer because of tax incidents. So yeah, it kind of sucks. At the same time, I understand like protectionism and stuff, I guess. But if you're like into like the free market and stuff, tariffs in general they just suck. So I don't really understand why he would play around with this, to be honest. Like, I don't know. Because the thing is, like, if you're doing anything like kind of like aggressive like this, any type of like slightly negative thing that happens is just going to get amplified by the media. And this isn't really slightly negative. I mean, you're wiping out a lot of like value in people's savings. And yes, the value is like pretty fake anyways. but you're still wiping that value out, and it's very easy to just, put headlines about, people losing all this wealth, and you look like an idiot. So I don't really understand why he did this. Like, it's politically very dumb. If anything, I admire the audacity to do something like that. But I don't know. I'm someone who like doesn't really invest that much. I have like boomer rocks and basic tech stocks and stuff. Like, I'm kind of content with what I have in my actual life right now. And that's really what's more important, right? What do you have in your life and the people around you? So much more important than number go up. Man, having your idealism, so much more important. And it's really why, one of the main reasons why I'm like so passionate about Anti Moonboyism is because like it's much more freeing. It's like so much better when you're here for like a purpose, because you can't lose. Like if Monero were to dump really, really hard, maybe there's like an inflation bug. Contrary to what people might think, I wouldn't be upset. You might not believe me, but like I don't really hold Monero at all, really. And I like my whole viewpoint on cryptocurrency and peer-to-peer cash is one based on like having that opportunity to avoid censorship. It's a powerful concept. As we progress, like we're going to need something like that. We will need peer-to-peer cash as time goes on. So the market's dumping doesn't really bother me. The only issue is I don't have a job. That sucks. I still don't have a job. I had mentioned on this program, like I had all these interviews. I didn't get that job, and I'm actually pretty pissed about that. But it is what it is. Outside of that, life's going pretty great, and I think that's what people really, really should focus on, because it's the ultimate hedge is what I'm trying to get at. So there's my pep talk to the people who are pink Wojaks right now. Don't worry, it's all good. It's all good. So we'll see what happens. Now, what was funny though is during the dump this weekend, there's all these Bitcoiners acting a little cocky. There was a little cockiness that came out, talking about how Bitcoin had decoupled, and they definitely got ahead of themselves, because then Bitcoin took another dump last night. Bitcoin has volatility. Okay, it clearly is volatile. And because of that, it's going to be sold off in times that things are risky. And if you have like all these headlines about, recession incoming, we don't know what's going to happen, oh my God, the world is ending, you better believe that Bitcoin's at the top of the list of someone's portfolio to sell. And that's what's happening. And of course, Bitcoin is safer relative to other cryptocurrencies because those are also going to dump, as we've seen. So I don't know what's going to happen with this. This isn't a political podcast, so from my point of view, a lot of this is just noise, and the economy and the way our fiat currency works, our debt-based currency works, is a total scam. And it's like, I don't know, it's a house of cards, really. Like, I don't know how it's standing. And really, the Fed, what they can do is like all of these other like crazy things to like keep the show going. This is one of those things where I think a lot of people are jumping to the conclusion that, oh, the world's going to end, we're going to move away from the dollar. It's like, no, like they got way more tricks up their sleeve. They can keep this going on for like hundreds of more years if they want to. And they will, because there's a lot of investment in this. A lot of lives and families and companies and total economies dependent on our dollar. So it's not going to go away anytime soon. So we'll see what the Fed does in response. If they do start like really loosening monetary policy, yeah, I do think we will see a pump in the markets. And I think Bitcoin, I'm still thinking Bitcoin is going to hit like 125, 130 as a top. Especially if the money printer gets turned on. But I don't think it's going to go much higher than that. But we'll see. Maybe it did top. Maybe it's over. That would be pretty interesting if that is the case. So anyways, that is the tariffs. What do we got next here? KYC. So AI is obviously taking over the world. And one thing that was done recently was the generation of fake passports using ChatGPT. And apparently people are now being able to like make very realistic looking identification. This is going to really, I think, trigger off a move towards kind of a nationwide type of ID system. This is, to be honest with you guys, I'm kind of surprised most countries have not implemented something like this. At least in the United States, I don't really follow what's going on in Europe, but in the United States, we don't have a national ID. They give you a social security number. It's a weird system. I don't even really completely understand why they do this system. I think people kind of just roll with it, to be honest with you. But yeah, we don't have like a national ID. And so I do think that on the one hand, it's kind of funny because like obviously KYC sucks, but like it looks like you can kind of just forge your own documents and get away with it pretty well. I shouldn't say easily because you will be using a bank account. So like it'll be probably pretty easy to figure out who you are unless you, I don't know, go above and beyond with how you're trying to launder money. I guess like, man, if you make like a bank account with fake IDs and stuff made through ChatGPT, I guess you could probably like create your own identity if you like really go all in, huh? Whatever. Anyway, that probably will eventually happen. We're going to have lots of fraud going on. And I think this will eventually lead to some sort of national ID kind of implementation. Of course, I always look at the negative side of it, but like really, like you're going to have a lot of people like committing fraud, and you're going to have some like proof that you are that person. Actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, as it is, like the way like filters work and stuff, like you can easily trick somebody to actually looking like somebody else already, like with like a basic computer, right? So yeah, I do expect governments to harden up the KYC AML regulations in response to something like this. It just seems inevitable. Now, related to that, the European Union is pushing for a digital ID wallet. This tweet says, Brussels is spending $1.3 billion to roll out the EU DI wallet, a unified digital ID for all Europeans. It promises convenience. Critics see danger. Civil liberty organizations warn of a real name internet, surveillance, and profiling. Centralized ID is a bigger target for hackers. One breach could expose everything. Device stolen, identity gone. The EU says it's all about access. Privacy advocates say it's overreach. Yeah, pretty much. The way they trick people into giving up privacy and like your rights with privacy is convenience. It's like the Trojan horse. And you can pretty much apply that to like everything. So, yeah, it's going to be like a thing where they're just going to have centralized wallets for everything. And those will be the only wallets you can use. And then on the other side, you're going to have the cryptocurrencies who are still peer-to-peer cash, not paying attention to that. So speaking of centralization, we have some unfortunate Lightning Network news with Zeus. Now, Zeus is one of the better Lightning Network services out there. Generally speaking, I've heard positive things about this wallet. However, they are now, or they have announced a collaboration with Cashu, which is a custodial Lightning Network service. Yeah. To be honest with you guys, I don't know much about this service, so I'm not going to like go on a whole rant about it. But people who I respect are talking down about this. And really what it is it's a further consolidation of Lightning Network into these centralized custodial services. I mean, we've been saying this now time and time again. This is what's going to happen with Lightning Network. They're going to get funneled into these really just not good services, at least not good from the perspective of privacy. And in relation to what I was just talking about, because Lightning Network isn't easy to use, people want convenience. And because of that, people are looking for that convenience in these centralized applications. And unfortunately, these centralized applications, they're not good for privacy. Ironically enough, they say they're good for privacy, but as one of their like points, but like they're lying, you know? So I'll probably do a deep dive in that later, but just another thing I saw. And also they announced it on April Fool's, so people thought it was a joke, and it was not a joke. They actually were doing it. The Bitcoin hash is at an all-time high. I'm looking at the chart right now. It hit 1 zeta hash per second recently. It is at an all-time high. So that's cool, I guess. I'm not a fan of ASIC mining, but it is clear that there has been a very aggressive push towards building mining companies and investing in mining companies, especially in the United States. Now, my views on that are pretty negative overall because of OFAC sanctions and attacking Bitcoin indirectly through control of the hash rate. It's really buying Bitcoin, or at least buying control of Bitcoin. But yeah, I don't really feel like ranting about that now, but that is just another thing to look at. So congratulations, Bitcoin, for being safer, more secure. We got some updates with Tornado Cash and a delay or postponement of their trial to July 14th. The trial was supposed to start this month, but I guess there is some disputes, and the way trials work, there's always delays. So this is from The Rage. It says here, the jury trial against Tornado Cash developer Roman Storm, originally scheduled for April 14th, has been moved to July 14th. The parties had spent the past months debating pre-trial disclosures in which the government attempted to petition Storm to directly reveal his defense strategy, and Storm attempted to compel the government to produce additional material potentially favorable to the developer's defense. So they had some disputes about the information they could or they couldn't reveal before the trial, and so things have been delayed. However, there is another thing that's happening, and it is the arguments over Chainalysis and their attributions. It says here, the defense has had its issues with the disclosure of material provided by the government as well. In February, Storm petitioned the court to order the government to fully comply with its disclosure obligations, arguing that the prosecution may be withholding information. Specifically, the defense sought the government to disclose any statement made by Chainalysis personnel in which they discuss any errors related to their analysis of Tornado Cash and or statements that support any defense theories articulated in Mr. Storm's various motions and any and all work product in which the government has relied on Chainalysis for attribution of hacks to the DPRK or North Korea, as well as any statements made by Tornado Cash users, relayers, token holders, developers, or other connected to Tornado Cash in which the person denies that they were engaged in a criminal conspiracy. And the article then says that to charge Storm with conspiracy to violate sanctions, the government is alleging that a minimum of $1 billion was laundered through Tornado Cash, and that this money was then used by North Korea. However, recently, Chainalysis wrongfully attributed over $300 million to North Korea. And if you, heard about that, basically there was a Chainalysis report about hacked funds going to North Korea. And then they released a revision of that, and $300 to $400 million was wrongfully attributed to the hack. And just makes Chainalysis look really dumb, because what you're doing is you're saying that Chainalysis has like this information that is like super accurate. They know what's happening at all times. But one, they're not sharing how they're doing this. It's a black box, and they're preventing it from entering the courts. But two, they've been wrong, like a lot. And it's being challenged now. So this is good news. At least it looks like good news, because the defense here, they're going to start leaning on the fact that this whatever procedure that Chainalysis is doing could very well just be inaccurate. And we already saw that with the Bitcoin fraud case, where they may have thrown an innocent man in jail. And it's possible they don't even care, which is pretty screwed up, but that's what we're seeing. Now, moving on, we have another Jack Dorsey clip. So Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, he has been a pretty big proponent of Bitcoin. Basically, every time he goes in public, he wears a shirt that says Satoshi on it. However, he's been pretty vocal about how Bitcoin is not being used as peer-to-peer cash. And I made this call a couple months ago, I think, where I said, like, listen, if there's somebody out there who's like famous, who's going to start supporting Monero, this guy, Dorsey, he's probably at the top of your list. And I'm not saying that's a positive thing. I'm looking at this in a impartial manner. Because he's saying a lot of the things that we're saying. And so I'm going to play this clip here, and we're going to react to it. I actually haven't listened to it. So let's check it out.
Let's fast forward to the future, and Bitcoin has failed. How did it fail?
I think it fails through irrelevance. Like it fails to be relevant to people on a daily basis. If it just ends up being store value and nothing more, I don't think it gains relevance at all. Like I think it has to be payments for it to be relevant on the everyday. Otherwise, it's just something you kind of buy and forget and only use in emergency situations or when you want to get liquid again. So I think if it doesn't transition to payments and find that everyday use case, it just gets increasingly irrelevant. And that's failure to me.
So what Dorsey is saying here isn't necessarily wrong, right? It's mostly correct. You know, Bitcoin clearly is embracing the store value narrative. All the talking heads are. And the peer-to-peer cash aspect of it being really tossed to the side. Lightning Network, adoption-wise, has been a failure. From the perspective of the cypherpunk, it's definitely a failure because it's becoming more and more centralized. So when you look at it from that perspective, what Dorsey is saying here is great. But, you know, me being a contrarian, I kind of get the feeling that he is implying that Bitcoin should be taken for what it is and smushed into traditional finance. And part of the reason I think that is because this is a guy who owns Square, right? That it's like a payments company. And my thinking is that he's trying to get Bitcoin to work on this centralized application. And that he thinks that this is what's going to be the way to get people to use Bitcoin. But like, yeah, I don't trust that. It's just more centralized garbage. It's more Venmo. You know, this is what people view second layer as. They want Venmo. They want PayPal. You know, they don't want peer-to-peer digital cash. And I don't see how this would become popular. We already have very easy to use applications like Venmo. This is actually one of the things that I like to bring up to people who are, you know, very confident of Bitcoin taking over or cryptocurrency in general. This also goes for people who like Monero. It's very annoying. There's a lot of people who think Monero is going to take over the world. No, it's not. And the reason it's not is because we already have extremely simple to use applications. You know, paying someone on Venmo is very easy. Very, very, very easy. Right from your bank account to somebody else instantly. Like that is like exactly what people want to do. And it's the app knows you're doing it, but like no one cares, right? That's the problem. So now he's saying, well, you can have Bitcoin do it instead. And it'll be Bitcoin on the Square app. It's the same thing though. It's just taking your savings from Bitcoin. And I think that's what he wants. He wants your savings to be in Bitcoin, for the Bitcoin to also be used, and to have it be used on this app, this front-end app called Square. And that to him is peer-to-peer cash. But to advocates such as myself and you guys, the listeners, you guys know what this is going to be used for. It's going to be used for censorship. It's going to be used to track and store data of people. It's going to suck ass. I would love to be wrong here. But that's what I'm saying. So hopefully that's not the case. But it's hard not to be skeptical of this guy because he did make Twitter, which, to be fair, has helped me become popular. But at the same time, it's helped a lot of shitty things happen. It's a huge issue with censorship until recently, I guess, but still. Anyways, so we'll see what happens. Dorsey, though, I still think is the front runner to start talking about Monero. And if he does, don't fucking get on your knees for this guy. Push back and say, listen, if you want to talk about peer-to-peer cash, that's great, but we're not fucking doing this Square bullshit, okay? We're doing this with our own open source wallets. That's how we should do it. Because anything else is complying, and anything else is being regulated, and anything else will suck. At least from the perspective of being a good, idealistic individual. From a UX perspective, yeah, his option's probably better, but we got to take a hit on the UX if we want to make the right product, right? That's what we have to do and focus on that. All right, let's do some Monero news. I'm going to go down a list here. Got a bunch of different stuff to talk about with Monero. This just broke this morning. Exodus has delisted Monero. This is one of those swap wallets where they have a bunch of different currencies inside of it, and you can just kind of, I think at least, I've never used it because it's, proprietary slop. But yeah, they delisted Monero. It says here you have until August 10, 2025 to send Monero to another supported wallet or platform or swap your Monero with Exodus. And I don't even think they have a reason that they're ending support, but they're doing it. So another delisting. At this point, we're kind of used to it. So, what else? We got here, full chain membership proof plus optimization competition was announced on getmonero.org. So the winner will receive a lot of Monero. So if you are a math person, this is something to enter, and you can basically try to optimize full chain membership proofs, and the winner is going to get paid. So if you know people who are really into math, this is a good opportunity for them to flex off their knowledge and to help out a project like Monero. By the way, other good news, the OSPEAD research was posted on Get Monero. There's a blog that was posted that talks about the OSPEAD research finally happened. But of course, the Twitter account for Monero still has not posted it. They still have not posted it, guys. Unbelievable. Anyways, they did post other stuff recently too, so they are aware that the blog is up, but this fucking Moonboy running this page cannot post anything somewhat self-critical about Monero. It's really disturbing, in my opinion. But anyways, the good news, though, is on the blog at Get Monero, there is a article about OSPEAD. We've already talked enough about OSPEAD, but it is nice that finally there's some recognition from Monero, and I do think that the website is being updated soon. So once that happens, it will look better, because the website we have right now is a little dated, in my opinion, and a lot of people agree with me on that. What else here? So of course, recently there was the eXch transaction fiasco with the hack that had happened recently with Bybit. And there is a blockchain intelligence team called Caudena. And basically what they did is they attempted to trace the transactions flowing through. And they said that they believe that they have identified the vast majority of the exchanges that happened from eXch. Again, that was used by the hackers. However, they made a point to mention that they were able to do that with the exception of Monero. So this is a great endorsement here. I do believe that Monero was used in this Bybit hack. We just don't have the raw data of it, and I don't think we ever will. This is something that they don't want to publicize this information, but it makes sense though that they're just draining reserves of cryptocurrencies. They are going to use Monero, and I would imagine that they would prefer Monero, and I would imagine that a lot of the Bitcoin they have, in addition to offloading it on exchanges that allow that, exchanges that don't have KYC, those still exist, or offloading that in like Russia or a jurisdiction that isn't friendly with the United States, or Europe, I should say, as well. But in addition to that, I'm sure they were also swapping into Monero, and in fact, they probably prefer that. But we're not really getting a good, we're not getting like a lot of data on that, and I don't think we ever will. So this is all me kind of thinking about it out loud, I guess. But this is proving, though, that Monero works, and it works really well. So Retoswap hit 3,500 Monero in liquidity, and that's awesome. It is number go up in real time. So shout out to Reto. It's been a big success so far this year, and it is continuing to grow. Definitely use it if you're looking for a way to onboard in Monero without KYC. Coincards. They announced their usage of their website by volume. Number one place, Monero at 38.81%. Let's give it an air horn. I haven't hit the air horn in like 2 weeks, so I've been itching to hit it. So there we go. In second place, Bitcoin at 36.91%. Then we have USDC at 11%, ETH at 5.8%, Lightning Network 2.6%. They're starting to catch up. So shout out to Lightning Network. So anyways, Monero though, as usual, punching above its weight. I saw another one too. It was like servers.guru, I think. They put out their usage. Monero is in the lead as well. Really, whenever you're seeing these charts, Monero is just being used. With that constant momentum of darknet market usage, you're having just people use Monero more. And so these statistics really don't surprise me at all. And so another one, Quickex. This is some sort of exchange, and they posted their most used pairs, and all three of the most used pairs involve Monero. They had 623 orders of BTC to Monero, 276 of Monero to USDT, and 271 of USDT to Monero. So Monero is in the top on this exchange. Yet again, they say. So I'm assuming that Monero has continually done well because people want to swap into Monero. That's what people are doing because Monero is being delisted on most exchanges. So these websites like Quickex and websites like Orange Friend are really needed. Now, I talked about delisting earlier from Exodus. Well, let's talk about a listing. We got Unstoppable Crypto Wallet. They are listing or they are integrating Monero into their wallet soon. So awesome news. I don't know anything about this wallet, but they seem to have a lot of followers on Twitter. And how awesome is that? So good to hear. Shout out to them. And I will have more information on that as it comes out. I just heard about it today. So cool stuff. So last but certainly not least, and in fact, I probably should have opened the Monero section with this, the release of version 0.18.4, the latest wallet version. The CLI is out. I believe the GUI is out now, or it should be out soon. Basically, if you have a node, you definitely want to update to this. So basically, there's been a discovery of a pretty significant vulnerability in RPC nodes. So if you're not running an RPC node, you have noticed this, but people who have been, they've been getting attacked. And so to work around this, some of the major nodes, such as what Seth runs, I believe Cake Wallet as well, and some other people, they've been using like a custom build to get around this just because their nodes are used a lot and their nodes were being attacked and taken down. So they've updated their nodes manually. That's all now fixed within the code. So definitely update your node if you are, especially if you're running a node for other people, because there was some sort of I think it was like a denial of service attack, and it was this person was spamming nodes, and it was actually taking them offline. So you definitely want to implement that if you can. So we got one more story here before we get to the final topic, and that is regarding eXch, who we were just talking about, and they announced a merger, and basically they got a lot of heat right now. And so they're kind of switching things up. So I'm going to read this message board post that they made. I believe they made this it was on Bitcoin Talk. This is what they said. eXch is about to merge with a company in another jurisdiction and leave the company in Belize. We will have new shareholders and new members on the management board. This merger is related to our decision to sell half of our company in order to reduce risks for our founding team and guarantee that we can continue operating without giving up our values. Our new partner are long-time Bitcoin and privacy enthusiasts whom we trust. We are aware that there is an ongoing operation targeting our service by some law enforcement agencies with the goal of adding us to their OFAC sanctions list and possibly seizing our infrastructure. Good luck to them, nevertheless. Since it's primarily coming from US-based agencies, we will update our TOS to inform our users in the United States not to use our service and warn them about the risks of being prosecuted in their country for using a service like ours. Since we have no logs or any IP-detected capabilities, we won't be able to enforce this policy. Thus, we can't be held responsible for any regulatory violations. We have already developed a legal framework to ensure that the responsibility for regulatory violations is applied to our customers and not to us, which will be outlined in the TOS. This might also apply to some countries in the EU, with the worst recent regulatory updates that target privacy services. However, it's not confirmed yet. Yeah, so I mean, I find this to be very interesting. They're kind of implying that this service is going to be sanctioned. And it will be very interesting to see. I've been talking about this quite a bit recently where, I think that this Bybit hack is going to lead to more regulations on CoinSwap services. And we have not seen OFAC put on an entire service like this. But yeah, if it's proven that this service was used to evade sanctions, we could see this entire website be added to that sanctions list. So here they are basically saying, hey, if you live in the United States, don't use us. which is kind of funny. I'm not sure if this is foreshadowing or if they're just being safe, but it's highly plausible that we will be seeing this company added to the OFAC sanctions list. Or at least there's going to be attempts to do this. And I don't know why they're moving their company. They're saying that it's to reduce risk. Yeah, I don't know. They seem, like, based on what I'm reading here, they seem to be pretty based. But, we'll see how based they are once law enforcement comes knocking because, yeah. So the final topic today is talking about cryptocurrencies that aren't being used, which I guess we've already been talking about today. The first thing was, of course, Bitcoin. And they've been having some empty blocks lately. Their usage is way down. And this is both good and bad news. On the positive front, it's good because it gets rid of the point of even having Lightning Network. Why not just focus on the base layer? The thing is, though, that from a long-term perspective, this is actually really bad. And the reason it's bad is because Bitcoin and the way it's set up is that miners are going to depend on fees. So if their service is not being used, then that's a problem. If you're dependent on fees, what are you going to do when your blocks are just, not being used? You're going to raise the fees, and that's a huge problem. So really, there needs to be a push for people to want Bitcoin to be used more on the base layer. The funny part, though, is if it is being used solely on the base layer, then you run into issues where the blocks aren't big enough, which we've already seen as well. They could adapt and increase the block size, but for whatever reason, that idea is complete poison to the Bitcoiners. I have no idea why. Well, I do know why. They want people to use the Lightning Network because it's a Trojan horse for centralization. We already knew it. We know that. But instead of doing that and just increasing the block size, they want to deal with what we have now. Okay. Well, the good news is Bitcoin's not being used as much. So maybe it isn't that big of a deal. But then you run into the issue of it not giving enough money or value to these miners. Eventually, this will come to a head, right? And this problem needs to be fixed. But unfortunately, if there's nothing being done, and anytime you even propose something like a tail emission, it's not going to happen. I mean, the 21 million is so ingrained in the Bitcoin crowd that it's never going to happen. But across the board, usage of cryptocurrency is mostly down. Most people have really just embraced the store of value narrative. And it's not just Bitcoin. It's pretty much everything. And a project we've been talking a lot about lately, Zcash, they have seen this as well. And I put out this tweet this week because I did a little digging. And I found out that based on a 90-day simple moving average, Zcash transactions are at an all-time low. So every 24 hours, they are averaging 2,293 transactions. However, half of those are Coinbase transactions, the block reward, which means that in one day, 1,152 of those 2,200 transactions, those are block rewards. And then when you look at the remaining transactions, which is about 1,100 transactions, a lot of those are transparent. A lot of them. Now, there isn't anything to measure the amount of shielded transactions, but if I had to guess, it's probably like 300 a day, maybe 400. I mean, those numbers are really low. And it's not surprising when you look at all these different websites that collected data on usage. Coincards, for example. I don't think Zcash has ever been above 0.5% of their monthly volume on Coincards. And I know it's available on there. Or Shopinbit, that's another one. What service that takes both Monero and Zcash shows Zcash being used more than Monero? There are none. So this is a huge problem for Zcash. Like a huge problem. But because Zcash is in an echo chamber, no one ever talks about this. And in fact, by me bringing this up, I get a lot of people accusing me of trying to make fun of Zcash. They should be sounding the alarm about this. This is terrible. This is really, really bad. It's a ghost chain right now. Now, on a good news front for Zcash this week, it was announced that they had a collaboration with Brave, the browser. I actually just switched to Brave too. I switched to Brave. I opened up a new tab. I see Zcash's logo. I'm like, what? They have it now integrated with the Brave wallet. So basically, they are using their money. This is probably the smartest thing they've done, to give them credit. They went and they spent a lot of money to get their Zcash integrated in the Brave wallet. Now, is this going to have an impact on their usage? Probably not. And if anything, it's kind of just surprising why, Brave isn't interested in adding Monero. It's very similar to Proton, which we talked about earlier in this episode. They're concerned about bags. They're not concerned about actual usage. Because the Monero transaction chart, it's a lot better. It shows long-term growth. You can see long-term growth in actual usage. It's slow, but it's there. It's slowly trending upward. Whereas with Zcash, it's trending downward. And now it's all-time low. This includes back in 2017. That's how much it's dipped. It's completely plummeted their usage. It's just non-existent. But if you are really someone who likes Zcash, I know you guys are out there. Okay, I know some of you listen to my show. You need to be really pissed off at the foundation because it's inexcusable how they've had all this money for advertising and buying stuff and whatever, and the transaction usage has just plummeted. It was never that high to begin with, to be fair, but it hasn't grown at all. Really, any passionate person involved in a peer-to-peer cryptocurrency. If they are not passionate about usage over price, they are fraudulent. Okay? With Zcash, though, you have another variable here where they're clearly not passionate about usage. What they're passionate about is white papers. This is what they're passionate about. They're passionate about making the most private thing ever. I've talked a lot about how privacy is not an on or an off switch, okay? And really what privacy debates turn into is a pissing contest. Oh, we're more private than you. No, we're more private than you. Burr, 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 burr. Doesn't fucking matter. What matters is what's actually being adopted. So I got into it with this one guy, this one Zcash developer. Actually, I think I got into it with more than one guy. I got into it with this one guy like yesterday, talking to him about Monero. Because the thing is, I'm not going to like go out and say Zcash shield transactions are bad. They're not. I think they're great. And most people agree with me on that front. Even the most like, okay, well, a lot of people think it's a it's a glowing conspiracy. I wouldn't go that far. I am highly skeptical of its metadata. It's leaking the Zashi wallet, for example. It's set up so it like automatically sends crash reports to the Zcash team. Like you can't even turn that off. What the fuck? Terrible. I don't even know where to begin with that one. There's other stuff too. I'm not going to go into a whole deep dive of this. I don't really particularly care. But back to what I was talking about though. I got into it with this guy. So let me pull up the tweet here. Okay, it's this guy named Biz Money. And he said that Zcash has hands down better tech than Monero, and that he's worked with both code bases extensively. I kind of doubt he's worked with Monero a lot. I haven't heard about this guy, but whatever. He then says, sorry, but your usage means nothing for real privacy tech. It's just the people you've marketed to about poor default settings who don't know any better. This is what he says. And so I respond to him and I ask him, what percentage of daily Zcash transactions are transparent? And that's the thing. These guys who basically just jerk off to their white papers, okay? They're not actually looking at how their product is being used. And the majority of their transactions and the majority of their usage is transparent. It doesn't matter how like wonderful your privacy technology is. When you have it as an option, it's not going to be used as much if it's built in. It's not fucking rocket science. Now it goes on, and he's basically arguing that, well, the shielded pools are better. And I keep saying, dude, it's not being used. But then at the tail end of the debate that we had, this is what he says. He goes, I personally wouldn't model my behaviors after what dumb criminals are doing, but you do you. That type of holier than thou mindset is freaking cancer. If Zcash was actually being adopted, it would be used on darknet markets. Why would it not? If it was a successful privacy tool, it would be adopted. Those dumb criminals, okay, they would be using your project. Punching down at them and calling them stupid or whatever. This is the Zcash reputation. It's, hey, we don't want certain types of people to use our privacy. What he's not getting is that the drug user is not far apart from the privacy advocate from the perspective of the government. He hasn't figured that out yet. And likewise, most of the Zcash people are like that. They're playing nice with the feds. Yeah, okay, let's see what happens in the long term with that. This mindset is exactly why Zcash has such poor adoption. Instead of being impartial and helping out the common man who doesn't care about the white paper, they act like they're above it. And we've seen time and time again how optional privacy is not adopted. The other thing too is these developers who are like so convinced that shielded transactions are like unbreakable, they haven't, like, they're not looking at it from the perspective of somebody who doesn't understand how this technology works. Because the average person who's going to use Zcash is not going to investigate timing analysis or amount correlation. So they're going to just take their transparent Zcash, go right into a shield transaction, and then just spend that exact amount, like immediately after. It doesn't matter if the transaction's shielded. Through timing analysis, you can trace that. But the Zcash developers, they're going to pretend that that's not an issue. It is an issue. And you're going to have people doing that, and they're going to get caught. And what are they going to say? Well, they're stupid. Or maybe they should have a look inside and say, you know what? Maybe we should have base layer privacy, because people are going to do that because most people who use cryptocurrencies are stupid. This is why base layer privacy is superior. They're convinced that everyone who's using Zcash is like on this higher plane of thinking. No, it's not the case. If Zcash were to be adopted, the majority of people using Zcash would be stupid. And that's okay, because that's how everything works. Most people are not doing research into how these cryptocurrencies work. So you need to dumb everything down. And yeah, with Zcash, they're acting holier than thou. They're not dumbing it down. Now, here's the thing though. I'm not even saying that Monero has like bad privacy techniques to be dumbed down for criminals or like for people who don't understand technology. Not the case. If anything, this, like the people who are totally in favor of Zcash shielded transactions miss the point completely that Monero has very strong built-in privacy. That's why it's being adopted. It works. And if you don't agree with me, show me the data. Right? Show me law enforcement, quote unquote, tracing somebody using Monero. Because time and time again, it is timing analysis with KYC exchanges. They're not using ring signatures to break Monero. That's actually not happening, which is honestly kind of surprising to me. But we know this from the information that we have. So if Zcash were to be adopted, you better believe that timing analysis would be used against criminals. But the Zcash developer, they're just avoidant of even thinking about that. It's below them is really what it is. And until they fix that mindset, Zcash is just not going to be adopted, which probably means it's just never going to be adopted, because I don't see this mindset changing. It's just got a rotten culture. And it's important to talk about these things. I know some people think I'm like, just punching down on Zcash, like maybe how Proton Mail is punching down on Monero. Not the case. I'm making a point here. Because if Monero does bend the knee for compliancy, if it does kind of get lazy with their thinking, and if we're not extending an olive branch to people who, might not think the same way as we do, this is what happens. You have to build a reputation where you have no political leanings in either direction, right? And that just means some sick people are going to be using Monero, but we can't think of it that way. We have to think of the bigger picture of having peer-to-peer digital cash. That is the end game. And we have to make it so the common man who doesn't know anything about crypto, they can just plug and play, because they are not going to read your stupid white papers. All right. That is enough out of me. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I'm going to get going now. As always, if you'd like to donate, xmrchat.com/Zenu. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'm signing off. Have a good one.